This will be my first impression of Canon's new point and shoot from mostly a Sony point of view. Okay, so this is the first Canon I've ever bought, the PowerShot V1, and I think Sony just got lapped. Now, before you think this is just a vlog camera, know that this can be a killer B camera as well that also takes amazing photos with an excellent zoom range and amazing stabilization. And this PowerShot is really bridging the divide between versatility and quality, which is why I think we are witnessing the rebirth of the point and shoot. Now, at the moment, the DJI Osmo 3 has taken the lion's share of the pocket camera for more serious creators, and I get it. I love mine, whereas the Fuji X100VI or even the XM5 is for photographers, whereas the Canon G7X III is for the TikTok generation. And for me, what has previously cornered that market as the hybrid version was the ZV-1. But now I think with a PowerShot V1, the point and shoot is back and way better than ever. So let me give you a glimpse into what Canon can do in a few unique scenarios so you can see for yourself if this camera is for you. And yet I admit that I think most of you will see this camera as their go-to vlog camera. So I presume it's worth showing you what happens when you just pick it up and point it at your face. Okay, let me do a quick test. I'm basically an aperture priority. I want to go from inside to outside to test the auto exposure. Let's see how it works. I'm at f2.8. I'm at center weighted, so it should be exposing for my face. I'm gonna go in direct sunlight. I have the ND set at auto. More backlit here, gonna turn to the sun. Going slowly. It's probably just cranking up the shutter. And using that 3 stops of ND, let's go back into the shade. Okay, it's a bit slow, but it is working. I don't know if you'd want it jarringly fast, but probably a little bit faster, and maybe there's a setting. This is the second day I've had this camera, basically the first day. I just got it out of the box last night. I have the stability on, I believe enhanced or whatever the highest you can go. There is optical stabilization in the lens, and then there's a digital stabilization in the camera, but that shouldn't matter. But it's still really wide angle view here. And I'm zooming in. The eye autofocus is super sticky. Now, this will be more of a first impressions video of the Canon PowerShot V1, mainly from a Sony perspective, but for context, I've used or owned cameras from almost every major manufacturer. If you've seen my most recent Lumix S9 review or my Nikon ZF review, or know I have a Fuji XM5 review coming up, you'll know I'm not a brand loyalist at all, and yet I've never really considered playing with a Canon until now, because still my main workhorses are the Sony FX3 and the Sony a7C II, as they are within the ecosystem that I just know best. So the great thing about the V1 is it's a fixed lens camera, so I don't have to worry about buying into yet another interchangeable lens ecosystem, especially one as difficult to navigate as Canon. So with this, I have everything I need built within the 16 to 15 millimeter f2.8 to 4.5 power zoom lens. And speaking of zooms, this may be the first Canon I bought, but ironically, this is the second PowerShot I own. And I also reviewed this Canon PowerShot SX30IS, which is a much older bridge camera with the most ridiculous 24mm to 840mm optical zoom, which I still really love, especially for snapping pics of the moon. But the SX30 was more of a find than a buy, as it used to be my mom's real estate camera. So here's a little unfair zoom range comparison. Okay, so there's one thing you can do with having a zoom lens, and that is a dolly zoom. So let me show you how to do that real quick. Okay, so how you do the dolly zoom is simple. You zoom in or zoom out and move the camera in the opposite direction that you're zooming. So if you're zooming in, you pull the camera out. So here we go, zooming in, pulling the camera out, trying to stay at the same pace. It's a little hard. It's also not a parfocal camera, obviously, so you're gonna probably lose focus a little bit. Let's try that in. I'm gonna zoom out and pull it in, and that gives you that sort of vertigo, that Jaws shot, that dolly zoom. Okay, I'm gonna try the vertigo effect or the dolly zoom or the severance shot. Let me see if I can manage to do it. However, a better comparison, and currently one of the most popular videos on my channel, is my long-term review of the Sony ZV-1, which used to be my favorite point-and-shoot and C camera. And this is the most direct competitor to this camera. In fact, I made a video a while back imagining what the Sony ZV-1 Mark II should be, with improvements like 10-bit color, better stability, wider zoom, and other features that I didn't really think they were going to give us, but should. And yet, somehow when Sony released the ZV-1 Mark II, it wasn't just underwhelming, it was actually worse than the ZV-1 in some key elements, whereas this actually checks every box on my wish list. So when I first saw the PowerShot V1 with its larger 1.4-inch 22.3 megapixel sensor with a more robust body with great ergonomics, also the texture on this camera is really amazing, and with a built-in fan and internal NDs, a much wider focal range with optical stabilization with legitimately great digital stabilization on top of all that, and then you get 10-bit video. While still being at that same price point, it was too tempting to pass up then. And the colors out of this camera are great as is, just straight out of the box, but it's super easy to customize them too. So everything you are seeing is my custom colors. Okay, also this is a custom LUT I'm using called Faithful. You can basically raise the saturation and contrast, take down the fine detail, the sharpening effects, and I believe change the tone from more magenta or the tint to more green. And this is sort of the combination I came up with. There's not a lot of controls, but it is enough to sort of get a pretty good look, and you can even change the auto to have this sort of more neutral effect instead of usually all standard are oversaturated and too punchy and contrasty. So it's nice that you can sort of have a lot of control with it, especially in photo. They give you a little bit more customization options, but yeah, this is video. I really like the way you can affect the skin tones. Canon is always good with skin. So yeah, I'm sort of liking this one. I'm also a sucker for a good black and white, and this even competes with my Nikon ZFC's mono. So this is my mono, or their black and white. I've tinkered with it a little bit, changing some of the contrast, a few other settings, but I didn't have to do much. It was pretty good straight out of the box. The real trick is to not be overexposed. Now, as someone who fancies themselves a bit of a camera reviewer, I've always wanted to own at least one camera from every brand, but presumed I likely would never actually buy a Canon until I first saw the V1, and then I got my hands on it ahead of time as I just got back from NAB, where I got to play with it in the Canon booth. Now, I also played with other gear from Blackmagic, Panasonic, Sony, and even knew the new Fuji medium format fixed lens camera, which is probably my dream camera now. I also looked at the Canon C80, which is tempting in a totally different category. And on the last day of the NAB, as I drove back from Vegas, the V1 literally got delivered an hour before I arrived. So it was like getting a little stocking stuffer after visiting the North Pole. So my favorite thing to do with all the cameras I own or have rented is to take POV photo walks at my local park. So here's my first photo walk with the V1 and with a few other camera shots to compare against. Okay, at the park again, but this time with the Canon PowerShot V1. For a quick photo walk, little video, nothing too in-depth though, so let's just see how it performs. Okay. Now, I do plan on making more of an in-depth review of the V1 down the line, and if you've seen any of my other previous reviews, you know I like to spend real time with the camera first before publishing my thoughts, as I really want to know the gear inside and out, as I know there's probably a bunch of things I've missed because I forgot to mention one thing, which is their autofocus. Canon's autofocus is of course amazing, on par with Sony's here. So I didn't even think to mention it in the main video, but it's worth seeing how well it works with a boy jumping on a trampoline. I think that helps everybody, but I love the eye autofocus in the little box. It's not like Lumix. Yeah, so again, Canon's autofocus is great. Now let's get back to this guy, because there's a lot more that I need to tinker with in different settings with different subjects, and it's always an adjustment switching between brands. So like every time I pick up a Nikon or Lumix or Sony and now Canon, I have to retrain some muscle memory. It's like switching from the Nintendo Switch to a Steam Deck. But I will say this camera was one of the easiest to just pick up and enjoy without fumbling around with the menu systems, which does make it the perfect travel/dad camera that you can also pocket. Because my previous pocket point and shoot, the Sony ZV-1, I sold a while back because the stabilization was just not cutting it anymore. So I honestly was surprised at how the PowerShot V1 performed, and here's a quick stabilization test with me chasing down my son on his bike with a few other dad cams to cut between. However, I am even considering renting the ZV-1 again just to compare the two head to head, but maybe I should also consider renting Canon's most popular point and shoot, the G7X series, as they are all sold out or back ordered everywhere and going for crazy prices on eBay now. And for some, the one thing that the V1 is missing, which might appeal more to the younger TikTokers, is a pop-up flash. Yet you can always add a small external flash, but it is weird how people love that feature on the G7X Mark III, even though the PowerShot V1 is better in every other way. And lest we forget, it shoots in C-Log3. So let's do some dynamic range tests with three extremely different cameras. Okay, so I am in C-Log3 and it is nighttime. I'm at 1/50th shutter at f2.8 auto ISO. I should probably look up what the base ISOs of C-Log3 are. But I'm gonna go from inside to outside. It is night. It's sort of full moonish. So yeah, let's see what it does. Okay, I'm gonna turn off auto ISO, and we are at 12,800. That's as high as it goes. And okay, I'm in C-Log3 again, and it's working for some reason. I'm at ISO 12,800. I took off the auto. I don't know why it's working now. Pitch black out. Sort of see the moon. Little ambient light. from there. Now, I don't have a good LUT for this. Usually I use my GAMUT conversion LUTs, which I might get one of those again, or I'll just do it myself, but I've never tried working with C-Log 3 or C-Log 2. Okay, just for the fun of it, I am putting on the SX30IS. But I can see the moon. So you can't see me, but you can sort of see the moon. Yeah, no go. Okay, so just for the fun of it, this is my FX3, also at f2.8, also at 12,800, but I'm in S-Log 3. In flexible ISO, still quite underexposed. I do have a built-in light on this thing though. Let's see if I can turn that on. Okay, so I have a built-on light on top of my rig, which I use sometimes. I'm at like 35% power. Yeah, so you could do it that way. Big difference. So after a week with Canon's PowerShot V1, I think it's your move, Sony. If you're planning on a ZV-1 Mark III, you're going to have to at least match these specs, or you're probably going to get left in the dust again. So I'm excited to now take this guy with me on the road and really put it through its paces. So until then, thank you all for your time and attention. I have a bunch more videos about videos like this on the way, so consider following along and subscribing. All right, thanks guys, bye.